Going live. Excellent. All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Emacs Hangout. We're a small group of 4 people until now. Maybe more people will join, but maybe we can do a quick round of introductions until then. So, Ian, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. Hi, my name's Ian. It's my second time. I'm a freelance game developer based in Tokyo, and without
Oh,
Emacs, I would have gone crazy due to the number of clients and languages and everything I have to deal with. So having an editor for every single little thing would have driven me nuts by now. So Emacs keeps me sane.
that's phenomenal. In Tokyo, you said.
Yep, I'm working for the Japanese games industry here.
Cool. So, what time is it now? And
It's
what's the
just
place?
turning 3 a.m. A little late.
Ah, damn it. All right,
I was awake, so I joined in.
That's
fair enough.
dedication.
Indeed.
I tend
Sasha,
to be
you
pretty
want to
close
say
to nocturnal, so it works out okay for me.
For
fair
sure.
enough?
I'm Sasha. I'm Sasha Chua. I am in Toronto, so it is actually 2 p.m. today. Very, very normal time. I was briefly in Tokyo, but I didn't get to meet up with Ian there. That was some time ago. But now, mostly, I just, in Toronto playing around with Emacs for all sorts of weird things like cooking and other household stuff.
Cool. Great. Will?
Hi, yeah, my name is Will Monroe, and I work at university in Louisiana in the United States. And I started using Emacs about a year ago. I used it several years before that, but I stopped when I was writing my dissertation. And I use it quite a bit right now. I use org mode a lot, and I'm trying to work through the tutorial for Lisp, although I haven't had as much time the last few weeks. And I just thought it might be nice to pop in and see what you all are up to, just to get some tips and ideas. I hope I can stay for the entire time, but this is part of my workday too, so I may have to leave. But yeah, I'm glad to see everyone.
All right, that's very cool. So,
And Philip, introduce yourself.
yeah, I will. My name is Philip. Everybody calls me Phil, so we'll stick with that. I'm from Switzerland. That's why I created this hangout to make make it possible for me to attend one. So I guess I'm hosting it now. Uh, I started with Emacs a few months ago. I dabbled with it every once in a while, and I started writing my notes and stuff in org mode, which is, I don't know, just the tab key alone is phenomenal. I don't know who came up with this, but I want to hug them or something. Yeah, uh, that's it from me so far. I prepared a few topics, but I thought we could maybe, if anybody has anything interesting to share that happened lately with Emacs or something, then go ahead, and else I would go to my reserved topics.
So I talked a bunch last time, so I want to get people time to get stuff in. But I got a few things that you can throw on the list. I
Yeah.
did my homework from last time basically, so I
All
got some stuff to
right.
share. Um, so if there's nothing else, I can just dive in. It should be relatively quick, I think, 5-10 minutes maybe.
Sure. I mean, we've got time.
That's true, we do. Okay. So just to kind of give you guys context to start with, since I don't know if everyone was here last time. Actually, Phil, I know you weren't because of the timing on your end. So my homework, quote unquote, from last time, kind of a complaint that I raised, and kind of hung up afterwards, feeling lame because I didn't really get good resolution for it, was that at a really high level, it's basically just workflow and language integration, in particular for the heavy statically typed languages, Java and C Sharp being the two big ones that are annoying for me because I use them regularly for Android development and for Unity 3D development, respectively. And so for me, it was basically, number one, just basic language support and trying to reclaim some of the things, the typical complaints that someone coming from an IDE has. Oh, I don't have my autocomplete. Oh, I don't
Mhm.
have my refactoring, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And then also the other one, which is still in progress, is trying to kind of bridge the gap between my editor, which is Emacs, and my actual engine or runtime environment, which tends to be whatever Google standard is for Android, or the Unity 3 editor for doing scene editing and stuff like that. And just kind of the clash between those two and having to tap back and forth constantly to do iteration and trying to get a better workflow there. So I don't have the right answer to that one yet, although I do have a good path forward in terms of just kind of using them in batch mode. So that's my idea there that I haven't moved on yet. But what I have got working since last time, after I hung up, feeling like I needed to actually prove myself, I said, okay, let's just go bash my head against C# one more time and see what happens. And so what happened is that OmniSharp, which is a kind of a back-end headless IDE for .NET based on Mono. The first time I used it, I think, early 2014, and it only came out in 2013. So either OmniSharp wasn't very far evolved at the time, or I wasn't very far evolved at the time because it didn't work out very well for me. But the good news is I tried it again this time, and it actually went pretty darn well. So let me do a really quick demo just to kind of show you guys what it's about and what it does. Let me share my screen here. 1 second. Let's do desktop 1. Go. Hopefully you're seeing my screen. How's my text size? Do I need to scale up?
That looks fine.
It's fine for me.
Okay, cool. I'll keep it this size then, just so the horizontal space is readable. So to give you a quick idea of what's going on here, actually before I really dig in, let me dump a link to my config into the chat, just so you guys have that as a reference to follow along with. If I can find it. There it is. Now let me just stick that in there if I can get the chat open. How do I get it? Where's the chat? Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm pasting a link to that in. So that's the GitHub link to my C# init file, and that has a very rudimentary setup that's mostly spent getting OmniSharp working. Okay, so and here on the left is the file I just linked for reference. And to give you some context going in, my original C# setup was almost just the first 2 lines in this config file. So it was basically a bunch of ugly style-related code that I've now pushed down into its own file, banished to the ether, basically, because there are dragons in it, and just setting up projectile mode. And that was pretty much it. So I didn't have a lot there. And the rest of this file, which is about 70 lines, is dedicated to just getting OmniSharp set up. And before I'm not going to go too far into what the config is actually doing, but let me just show you some of the features once you've actually got it running. So over on the right-hand side here, I've got some random C# file from a Unity project that's already got OmniSharp up and running. And what I've got is OmniSharp running along with Company using OmniSharp as my backend, which gets you actual symbolic completion rather than just doing tags-based stuff or whatnot. So it's actually pretty nice. So for example, and I've got my some of the keys that I bound over here on the left side to give you an idea of what's there. But so there's a couple of minor niggling issues. One is that fly check is still a little iffy, so I'm just going to kill it. And let me go ahead and just do something random here. So say I've got some random object here. I've got an auth manager. I want to do something with that. So I can just type auth dot, and company mode then does its standard thing, actually using the structure of the project, and pops up things that I can autocomplete. And so that works for my custom class. So I can say, okay, I want to call my set access credentials method, and I want to complete that. So for my token, I'm going to pass foo. For my secret, I'm going to pass var, done, and go on and do the next thing. So you get very quick and easy auto completion like you do in an ordinary IDE, which is cool. So that eliminates that complaint. And that also works not just for your app level classes, but for things in the .NET framework or Unity classes as well, which for me is the biggest pain point with autocomplete, because it's just a massive API and you can never remember anything. So because this class is a mono behavior, which is Unity's thing, I can go this dot and then dig into all the custom methods that Unity defines. So grab some component from my object, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So pretty good autocomplete. And then a few other quick examples, kind of the other standard ones that you get are, okay, I've got another custom class over here, registration routine, jump to definition. So I can run my jump to definition and jump right to where the constructor in this case for that one is bound. And that gets you all, so if you're used to navigating with tags, that gets you the same sort of thing, so I can just pop to head right back to where I was. So nice and snappy, which is cool. And then the same sort of thing, if I go back to that definition, they give you a really good, solid find references as well. They call it find usages. So I can run that, and that integrates with Helm because I'm using their method. And so I get a Helm style completed usages thing. So if I want to find something in a specific file, I can say, okay, look for things in this file where I'm calling the constructor, and those are identical. So I guess I can't easily narrow that down more, and then just hit one of those and jump to where I want to go. So those are kind of probably the big three, I guess, in terms of what you usually see with someone kind of stressing with missing IDE features. But OmniSharp also does some really cool refactoring stuff, and I haven't gone too far with this, but I found a quick example here. It's just an intelligent rename. So I can say, let me pull up, what's a good thing? So let me just grab my auth manager class here in another, another frame. There it is. And let's say I want to refactor this guy. So let's say I just want to rename my class for whatever reason. So I've got my class definition here. It's being used over on the right frame right here. So let's say, okay, I want to rename the symbol at points. So we can say, okay, what do you want to rename it to? Something. Yeah. And that hits your whole project and actually does your automated refactor. And all your references to that get automatically changed over.
It
So
seems
that's
to have
really
gotten
cool.
a little crazy in that one. It said something really awesome, something really awesome.
Oh yeah, look at that. It's bugged out. Interesting. So yeah, obviously it's not perfect. I've actually seen there's another bug if you do what is it? If you don't have an access level specified on a member variable, and it can go funky if you try to either jump to it or rename it. So again, not perfect, but a heck of a lot better than not having anything there to begin with. So yeah, this has kind of been my experiment. And in terms of so an interesting thing here, actually, so kind of a funny side note, is that it was yesterday or today, Microsoft just announced their new cross-platform editor, Visual Studio Code, and the funny coincidence is that it actually runs on the same back end. They're running they're running OmniSharp on the back end and using the same functionality that this package in Emacs is using. So pretty much, I've got identical functionality in theory. Assuming the Emacs bindings are all up to snuff. And so after they made their announcement, I basically posted it and said, "Oh, hey, look, Unity 3D people, you can get off of mono development, actually use this cool thing, get auto completion or whatnot." And as a funny side note, Emacs already does all that cool stuff too, so it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. A friend of mine who does a lot of C# development. Okay, so he attended a talk of the guy that actually did OmniSharp, developed OmniSharp, and he basically went to Microsoft and went, guys, I just there's a few things that I don't get. Please help me. And Microsoft actually said, sure, we can help you. And so they actually took 2 or 3 developers or something and made them work full time or something on OmniSharp for a while. And apparently that's why, I guess. I didn't know that they were planning the cross-platform editor, but I guess that's why they did it.
Yeah, I think it's a general strategy on there, and they're trying to open up the .NET ecosystem and actually get it running cross-platform, which is a very cool thing. So pretty exciting. That's pretty much OmniSharp.
The new project definition file format is apparently JSON, which is interesting. For I think ASP.NET, for new ASP.NET stuff, it's really cool. They got rid of all the XML cruft. Interesting.
Yeah, they seem to be moving in a more open direction, which is exciting. It's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
While I'm thinking about it, I'm also going to paste a link to OmniSharp into their editor in the chat real quick, just so people have it for reference.
And I think is this a good point to take a break and welcome Tim? we have a new guest on the call. Hi Tim, how are you? We can't hear you, I don't think.
Do you want to click on the gear icon to check your audio settings?
Nice, the gear icon, excellent. You are already unmuted, actually. That's strange. All right. Anyway, welcome. Yes. So, thank you, Ian, for your interesting introduction into OmniSharp for Emacs. So, you said at the beginning that you were also looking at something for Java, right?
Yeah, so Java I haven't been active on. I chose to focus on C# just because I'm doing a little bit more work there currently, and so it was annoying me a little bit more. Personal priority level, I guess. Java is another one where Java actually doesn't feel quite the same. C# was fortunate for me because OmniSharp just kind of recently sort of ramped up, and that became very easy for me to just pull in and start using. Java, I feel like we're how to say it's sort of a much later time frame, and if anything, I feel like things have been getting shakier just in terms of having easy integration at the project level there. When I was griping about Java last time, I think it was probably a little bit imprecise. I think what really it's less language support. I think support for the Java language itself is fine. Doing simple command line builds, for example, running Java C and whatnot. I guess a more Linux style of Java development is very straightforward. The real pain point for me with Java is, I'm working for a client who's got an Eclipse project or an Android Studio project, and I have to try and take my editor and smack it against that and make it interoperate somehow. And so usually what I end up falling back on is running their editor of preference as kind of the final step in my build chain, and just doing the majority of my code editing off in Emacs and then swapping back and forth. And
so if it's Emacs, if it's Eclipse based, there's a project that started in Vim. It's called the Eclim.
Yeah, so Eclim I'm forward with, and I'm familiar with. I used it a couple of years ago, and again, kind of like OmniSharp, couldn't get the integration working right away. But I think they also look a little bit better packaged recently, so I do owe them a second chance. I think, again, that's actually almost an identical approach to OmniSharp now that I think about it. It's really just a headless version of Eclipse.
But by now it is, yeah.
So if it works, and were they originally just kind of an integration point for the existing IDE, and it was just the standard client? Is that how they evolved? They only went headless recently?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well,
so
I don't know about recently.
I don't. So if they work, then yeah, it sounds like an awesome solution. From what I can tell, that's really, in terms of actually integrating an existing project and just not wanting to kill myself, it seems like actually integrating with the IDE is really the only reliable way to get there, sadly, unless it's a really super open standard that a ton of people are already interacting with. So maybe Microsoft's new format will be easier. Who knows? So yeah, I do owe them a second chance, and if I have any luck, doing the next try at integrating Eclim will go as well as OmniSharp did, and I'll be much happier. We'll see. And worst case there, even if that doesn't work out, the next big thing for me is trying to bridge the Emacs, the Emacs foreign client divide for the actual kind of how to say. I'm good for editing, and I'm pretty good for kind of standalone compiling right now. And so the last step is actually getting to runtime and testing, smoothly without actually jumping outside of Emacs. And so if I can get a batch mode version of Unity, Eclipse or whatnot, to actually build stuff and run my tests at least, headlessly, then that'll get me a pretty long way there. So hopefully I'll get to try that next.
Excellent. Cool. Excellent. So to continue the topic of language integration, just a quick tale on Python, I guess. So I recently tried to work through the Google Code Jam something problems, just for fun after the thing was closed, and I decided to use Emacs because I was like, well, why not? And I figured out that there's a cool shortcut. I think it's Control C, Control C, that just puts the whole Python buffer code thingy into the REPL, and it's just phenomenal to work like that. It's so much fun. So if anybody hasn't tried that yet, I strongly encourage you to play around with that. It's really cool. You immediately structure your programs differently so that you see the errors in this way, but it's so much fun. It's excellent.
If you like
Any
that, you might also consider using org mode and exploring org Babel blocks. So you have your nodes
Yes.
and your code, and you can execute your code easily as well.
I actually played around with that a little bit, but I got confused when it tried to. Well, I ran a command and then I think it opened a new view for just the code or something, and I got so confused. What did you just paste? Scala? Oh, it's a Scala thing. NCMake, Ian? Ensign?
Yeah, so Enzyme, Tim just mentioned it, and I looked up the link really
Ah,
quick,
okay.
and
I
it's
see.
apparently a similar setup specifically for Scala. So
Okay,
sounds pretty
cool.
fun. Oh, apparently
Oh,
it does Java.
nice.
Maybe I'll look a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tip,
Enhanced
Tim.
enhanced Scala integration. Yes, thank you very much. Enhanced Scala integration mode for text editors, especially Emacs server component. Phenomenal. I like it. All right. Good, good. Um, is there anyone else that wants to talk about anything that tickled their fancy lately?
I'm curious about what you and Will have been learning as relatively new users of Emacs and Emacs Lisp.
Ah. All right. Will, do you want to go first?
Yeah, all sorts of things. I think, but I think probably none of them very deeply. And in an earlier talk, I think maybe a month ago, Sasha, when I guess there's a number of us talking during the Emacs chat or Emacs Hangout. One of my problems was that I would discover things and try to implement them, and I would get them to a point where they would be working good enough, but they weren't very well polished. And so I'm not a developer. I mean, I do some lightweight HTML stuff, but mostly what I do is writing, and I use it as a writing and organizing environment. It's terrific for that. But I really like learning, how things work, and I like exploring how Lisp works, and it's a lot of fun for that. That I can make it do what I want, serve my needs better. And so I guess I'm trying to answer your question by just saying that, I started using Helm. That works pretty well, but there's so many things to learn that I got it working good enough, and then something else came up that I really needed to address. So I find myself trying to balance between, well, studying that Lisp intro, tutorial, for example, just to try to become better acquainted with how to read Lisp and how to troubleshoot it, and then day to day discover things and try to work with them and implement them, because I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing that. So it's kind of, that's what I'm learning. I've been using it for about a year. Org mode is terrific, and I used to use some different GTD tools before that, but it's really expanded out into a whole. Everything that I write stays in Emacs. Everything that I organize stays there. It's really really terrific, and I have a few friends here at the university that also use it. So I'm trying to think of the last thing I really threw into. Probably the one thing, I'll say this one thing. There was someone during a meeting, during the Hangout, that mentioned just using a separate Lisp file that you would load instead of your config, and just to point to that for bits of code that you're not so sure about. So simple, but I do that now. And I have a nice little shortcut so that I can date it and comment in what I'm doing. And if I want to, I can abandon it later. I realize that's a very beginner's step, but that's actually something I use all the time now whenever I want to throw in some new Lisp.
Will, have you said you're focused mostly on writing. Have you read the Woodnotes guide? Randall Wood? You might have found this
No,
one.
I don't know that.
Let me post it in chat. It's basically
Yeah,
just a massive reference for writing focus usage.
Oh,
that
cool.
yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Pasting it in right now.
I don't think I've come across it either, so this is great.
Yeah, this is exactly
Yeah.
the reason why I wanted to listen in today.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm gonna have to take some time with this. I can tell just
Yeah.
at the table of
So yeah,
contents.
he's focused,
Cool.
largely around writing prose, and has a lot of things about foreign character sets and things like that. If you work in weird languages, natural languages, and yeah, just goes kind of pretty deep on just writing text. So there's probably stuff to learn in there.
That's terrific. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Emacs, help me out. I don't even really know what Emacs SE is. Is that a science? I'm sorry.
Stack Exchange, probably.
Oh, Stack Exchange. Gosh, sorry. Yes, I haunt Stack Exchange. I don't really ask or answer yet, but I do spend some time trying to understand the problems that I see and the org mode problems mainly. Um, I think I'm at a comfortable place after a year of use that I could probably start to contribute to some things, but probably mostly in the form of well-written questions. Or better, maybe not well-written, but at least, I have some clue as to what might be wrong.
I also really like reading the Emacs Reddit and Planet Emacs Zen for
Ooh.
inspiration.
Yeah, I follow those. I follow that feed, and the Reddit thread has brought some new things to my attention. It's so much great stuff. I mean, that's actually my problem is how do I, put up a good filter and really say, all right, this is what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
This is what I'm interested in. It's really a lot of fun.
I have a recent post on balancing doing and improving because yak shaving is something we all struggle with.
I
So,
read that. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I read that. I'm trying. It's been like a month ago or so. I'm not sure. Maybe a few weeks ago. Yeah, I really like. I mean, the fact that you and many others like to take a lot of notes to sort of make very explicit and clear what your intention is, and then how it works afterwards. That's a great way to work. But certainly, as I'm trying to learn how to use Emacs, which can be very puzzling, especially can be very puzzling for someone like me. It's a great help. Um, Honestly, even just talking to all of you right now, I have one friend who uses Emacs, but other than that, I have no contact with any other living souls that even touch it. So
There is a conference. Apparently, it's on August 29 now, and what I think it's evolving into is maybe lots of local meetups, a video stream, just getting that sense of
Cool.
community and seeing people.
Excellent. As long as we don't abandon the stream, I'm
Oh,
happy.
heck no. And everything should be recorded for people who are not getting up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Because I'm not flying out to America.
That's cool.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Will. I can give a quick outline what I was up to until in the last few weeks or so. I actually, from the last hangout from the one hangout that I attended, I heard the name Space Max, and I just kind of went, okay, I like space. No, so I looked it up, and SpaceMax is a configuration framework for all of you that haven't been looking that up, I guess. So what it does is it just gives you a whole bunch of default for your configuration thing, and for all the editors that I kind of flirted with, I guess. I learned quite a bit of VI and Vim. I played around with Kate and Sublime Text and all that stuff. And always I found myself kind of drawn towards these configuration frameworks to take the edge off starting diving in the deep end. But in the end, I always notice that I need to have read the basics. I need to learn how it properly works and everything. So I kind of had an interesting start with Emacs when I decided that I need to have a look at Emacs because I have never done so. I decided to not do any of that, of all that configuration framework stuff, and just go basically. I need to learn the basic commands first, and then we can see about packages or well, I called them plugins in the beginning, and then I went on the IRC, and they were like, nope, there's no plugins in Emacs, and I was like, what? They are very peculiar about their terminology, but that's okay. They're called Lisp modules, I think. um, so I actually followed their advice for a while. I wrote index cards with commands and the shortcuts and stuff, which was very helpful. And I'm probably still not up to a level where I could efficiently work with the editor, but I just noticed that it doesn't quite work for me to start at the beginning with an editor that is this complex. I think with VI you have the advantage of learning that editor language that VI has. I don't know if you're all familiar with this kind of verb and object terminology, and once you kind of understand that, suddenly you're quite productive actually. You're quite it's quite useful all of a sudden. But Emacs doesn't have that necessarily. So I noticed that I kind of I'm in this chicken and egg problem where I'm not using Emacs because I'm frustrated and slow, but I should be using Emacs to get unfrustrated and unslow. So I kind of decided to abandon my original plan of just starting from the very bottom. So I decided to have a look at SpaceMax, and it's very neat. They have the cool thing, and the thing that I noticed about Emacs and the community around Emacs is that they are obsessed with documentation, and it's phenomenal. Um, there's so much good documentation, and almost every not plugin, every module that I came across has had either excellent comments for reading through it or a phenomenal documentation, bar a few tiny ones that I didn't understand, but that's okay. What are you talking about in the chat? Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. That's a good. So Tim mentioned that on the Emacs Stack Exchange, there's a few questions open probably that revolve around these starter kits. And I'm aware that there's actually other starter kits. I have looked into one by who was that? Some famous Emacs person guy thing. Yeah, that's maybe, I don't know. In Prelude. Yeah, probably, yeah. So anyway, where was I? I kind of lost my train of thought. So yeah, I was looking into SpaceMax, and I like the documentation, especially because they have a file that's called conventions, which is something that every project should have, but no project ever documents, which is very annoying. I mean, this is obviously exaggerated, but it's kind of annoying because in all of the configuration frameworks for Vim, it's kind of really thrown together and sort of it's well organized, but they don't give much thought to how everything plays together, I guess. So here you have this vast collection of ELIS modules that are sort of put together with really well thought through key bindings and a well configured. Oh yeah, and it all works with evil mode because that's one of the central points. That's one of the central points that they kind of advertise on the front of their page. It's basically like, so you want to try Emacs, but you only know Vim. Well, this is the thing for you, which I'm not convinced that's necessarily true, but I'll let them have their glory. So with one of the newest versions of Spacemacs, it will actually ask you at the beginning of the setup, do you want to be the leader of the Vim rebels, or do you want to live in the holy something something of Emacs? Which is funny, and I think it's cool that they kind of went, sure, all the Emacs guys can use our packages too, obviously, and they set up so many cool kind of helper functions, and I think they set up Helm mode and I do and Fly mode and all this stuff by default. And actually, um, before I go on a further into this topic, a small tangent. I was looking for a replacement for Nerd Tree, which is this kind of file drawer type thing that all the cool editors have these days. um, and on Vim the standard implementation is called Nerd Tree, and on Emacs I learned it's actually Neo Tree, and I went through all the trouble of kind of packaging it for Spacemacs with this kind of layer type thing, and only to find out afterwards that it was in there all along. So that was interesting. Yeah. Uh, but my ultimate goal is actually not to rely on Spacemacs for all eternity. My goal with Spacemacs is to have it be one of my stepping stones to kind of understand Emacs better, and to kind of find out what the functionality is that I wanted to have, because that's always one of the hardest things for me. Maybe it's because I'm still, I don't know, an inexperienced developer, which I am, or maybe it's because I'm just not wired that way. But I have troubles defining my own workflows. I like, for example, I don't know how many of you run Linux. All right, so some. Okay.
On my servers.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Not
the
on my
GUI.
desktop, unfortunately.
So there's KDE and GNOME, which are the big ones, and then there's a bunch of homebrew ones and window managers and stuff. But KDE and GNOME kind of fundamentally differ in how customizable they are these days. And when GNOME, the newest iteration of GNOME came out, they basically removed half of the settings, and everybody was crying. And on the other hand, KDE just polished everything and made it look like Windows Vista, which was an interesting decision. But when GNOME came out, everybody was crying, but me. I loved it because suddenly somebody came and said, "Hey, I have a proposition for your workflow. Here, do this. I can tell you exactly what you should be doing when you want to solve this problem." And it was glorious. And I'm looking kind of for the same thing here, I guess. As soon as I figured out what my workflow is supposed to be for certain things, I want to be able to extract that out of this configuration framework and craft my own init.l, obviously. But I really want this stepping stone. I think this is really going to be an interesting part of this journey. And this kind of leads nicely to my next question. How many of you have actually played around with these configuration frameworks in this or in other editors?
I'm sorry, what was that again? Because I couldn't quite make it out.
How many of you have actually played around with Spacemacs or other configuration frameworks in Emacs or in other editors maybe? And what was your experience?
So I have a funny story, kind of related to your point about using Spacemacs to learn workflows. Is that I think what a lot of people probably don't realize is that even if you don't adopt a framework like that wholesale, and even if you're an experienced user with your own existing setup, it can still be a really valuable learning tool piecemeal. And I actually looked at it and used it. I haven't run the framework Spacemacs, but I've used it as a reference. So
Okay.
when I was actually poking, when I initially started poking at OmniSharp again, I went to them as a manual, basically, figuring that they probably had an integration. And they do, and it's much too simple for my use case. But they, got me at least, a really simple working example piece of code that I could say, okay, cool, I know someone has this working, and that's a starting point or a diving board for me, effectively. And I think, and again, it doesn't have to be Spacemacs. I think Prelude works in much the same way, and much of the bigger, hey, here's a decent init setup that you can use as an example. Repositories out there are fine for the exact same thing, but I think there's probably more resources like this than we tend to realize for learning how to use a specific tool. So for things, in particular for complicated things, for Helm or whatnot, where it's just this massive surface area and you don't really know how to start, I think a framework like this may be the proper answer, even if you never run a line of code in it.
Yeah.
And then there's configuration, which a lot of these frameworks will help you with, and then there's the actual workflow of it. Remembering to use these keyboard shortcuts or using this function or whatever. And for that, I like reading blog posts or watching videos or convincing someone to talk about their config in one of those Emacs Hangouts. Because it's only when you actually see other people using something that you notice them using something you'd never even thought of looking for.
Exactly. That was probably my most important point. What Spacemacs enables me to do is figure out what is out there and what it does. Because of the documentation, I can just sort of go into the contrib. There's a folder called contrib which has all the packages, and you can just kind of click through them and go, this sounds interesting. What does it do? And then let's enable it. Let's play around with it. It's nice. It's nice. I like it.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. Excellent.
Woohoo! I have a few words to say about the topic that you're talking about now as well.
Sure.
I think that discoverability is a big issue. When you're trying to figure out what your workflows are and stuff. So, for instance, one of the things that I came across recently was, I think it's called Helm C Yasnippet. The name is a bit, I don't know, misleading. But basically, the way I discovered this was I was looking for a way to train myself to use Yasnippet more, because I've had that installed forever. But I feel that it has so many idiosyncrasies, like the different snippets have different keys and different modes, and that was basically just keeping me from ever really adopting it. I mean, if I'd had like a week where I would just do Emacs stuff, then maybe I would have been able to wrap my mind around it, but I didn't, so I never really got around to using it. And so basically my first idea was to maybe implement something off of Hydra. So get a Hydra that would basically read all of the snippets that are defined for a certain mode. And then I would, invoke the Hydra, and it would show me all of the snippets. That was one of the ideas that I had. But then I kind of looked into Yasnippet, into the code a bit more, and I was like, nah, I don't know, this is going to be a lot of work. And I ended up searching Malpa for a package, and I came across this Helm C Yasnippet thing. And what that does is actually it gives you Helm completion for Yasnippets that are defined in a buffer. And this is like the coolest thing. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm fully there yet, but I think in terms of learning your way around YaSnippet and discovering the snippets that you have available in a given mode, it's really useful. I mean, if you guys want, I can also demo it.
That would be great.
Hold on. So I click share my screen, right? Screen share.
Probably.
Hey, can you edit past posts in chat of curiosity? I got a typo in my link.
just post it again.
I'll paste it again. Walk of shame. So sad. There it is.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
I love the comment.
Yeah, I don't know where I found that. I didn't come up with that. I can't take credit for it, but yeah. So right now I'm in Emacs list mode, right? This is just the scratch buffer, and basically I've just bound this one command. I forget what it is now. Let me see. Helm yas complete. I've just bound that to a key, and what that's going to do. I mean, I can't really increase. Let me see if I can increase the font size here. Yeah, I actually can. Okay. So as you can see on the right, I've invoked this command, and I now get a list of all of the YaSnippets snippets that are defined for Emacs list mode, and I have configured it to also show me the keys. So the stuff in square brackets that you see, that's actually the keys that you would type if you knew what they were. So there's a configuration variable that you can set that controls whether or not you actually get to see the keys next to the to the commands that these things complete to. And I find that this is a really nice way of learning about the snippets that actually matter to me, and to sort of memorize new snippets piece by piece. So for whatever reason, I've never seen this package mentioned in any blogs. I mean, maybe I've been reading the wrong blogs, but I'm just really glad that I came across this package, and I can recommend it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I do, for instance, Python mode, let me see. Yeah, that takes a while to load usually. So now I'm in Python mode, and I can call the same command, and as you can see, it shows me different stuff, different types of snippets, and there are actually many of them. I was surprised. So yeah, that's it.
I had no idea that existed.
Cool.
Added to the
Yeah.
config.
I,
So
for one,
you-
am definitely going to try using that because I'm also definitely guilty of, being, I guess, how to say, claiming that I'm a YaSnippet user, but not using it nearly enough.
Yeah.
So it could help. I'll give it a look. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's really neat. I haven't used YaSnippet very much, but I also have it, just like you. I ended up finding another way to get to what I wanted at the time, but this might bring me back to reconsider it again.
Yeah. Oh, and what I forgot to show, actually, when you in the Helm buffer, when you press Tab, you get a bunch of other options. What you can do with this package. So you can jump to the snippet file and basically if you want to edit it or something like that. So it has a bunch of additional tools that can be quite useful, I guess. I haven't used those extensively myself, but yeah, we'll see.
Cool. So just I kind of missed it. So you start this plugin basically with the shortcut, and then it displays the Helm buffer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So
okay.
based on your major mode, it's going to display all of the snippets that are currently defined.
Mhm. Okay.
So yeah,
Okay,
and also
I
I
see.
think for the parent modes. So sometimes, for instance, prog mode, define some snippets, and then you have some snippets that are specific to Emacs list mode or Python mode.
Yeah, okay.
And you should get all of them
All
listed,
right.
and yeah.
So you mentioned Hydra just before. Sorry,
Yep.
Will. I heard this bandied around a lot because apparently it's amazing. I don't understand what it does. Can somebody here explain to me what Hydra does?
I can.
Sure, go ahead.
So basically, what you do, well, I'm just going to share my screen again because I think that's just the easiest because I have a bunch of hydras defined.
Sounds good.
Let me just prepare here. Just a second.
Take your time.
Okay. So I'll share this again. All right. So I'm just going to demonstrate with one of my very basic hydras. It's going to be a bit hard to see for you probably. You want to focus on the bottom of the screen where my mini buffer is. So for instance, I have this one hydra for moving lines up and down. So right now, let me turn on this so you can better see where I am. And I've bound this to, well, 2 different keystrokes. So for instance, I hit one of them, and now, so this is my move text hydra, right? And as you can see, hopefully see down in the mini buffer, it says move text, and then I have the shortcuts, they're in red, so U and D, and they move up and down respectively. And so I've entered the hydra now, and now all I need to do, I've sort of established a temporary state, right, where I can just press U to move a line up, and D to move it down. As you can see, what I'm doing right now here, I'm just basically pressing single keys to do this. And then if I call any other command, or I cancel the hydra with just Control G, it goes away.
Okay.
And so basically, the way that is defined, let me bring that up. Yeah. So I have it here. This is a very one of the simplest hydras that I have. So you have this macro def hydra, and then you get to basically choose a name for your hydra, and you can supply some arguments. I'm not doing that here. And the next argument is a string that you see to the very left in the mini buffer. So as you saw, for me, it said move text, and this is the text that I define here. And then I basically, the remaining statements, expressions here are basically definitions of heads. So I'm associating key bindings with specific commands, and I'm also specifying a hint. What I want the hydra to show me, so that I know what the different keys are going to do, right? And you can emit those, and it'll just show you like U and D or whatever. But I kind of like to have the hints there to remind myself. Again, this is all about discoverability.
Yeah, that's great. So just to quickly make sure that I get this, with this you can essentially have it be sort of self-documenting, that if you enter the hydra, you then get this mini buffer at the bottom, or the separate buffer that will show you all of the shortcuts there are and what they do, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
That's exactly it.
phenomenal.
And you can, I mean, I haven't really made use of that extensively, but you can go crazy with the hints. I mean, I only have this
Okay.
move text thing there in this Hydra, but you should check out the or Emacs blog.
Mhm.
That's the blog of the author of Hydra,
Okay. Okay.
and he posts regularly about different types of hydras, and also the Hydra wiki. A lot of people have been contributing different hydras to that, and there's a hydra for Helm, for example, that it looks really futuristic. It almost like push buttons for the different commands and stuff. So it has really lots and lots of capabilities to yeah, to be self-documenting, like you said. And
That's cool.
for instance, one of the things that they recently added um, is the hint feature. No, sorry, the idle feature. Apparently, you can now tell Hydra to show the hints after, I don't know, X amount of seconds. So I don't know if the idle keyword, if that takes milliseconds or seconds. I don't know because I haven't used it. But basically, if you use that, what that does is it'll only show the hint in the mini buffer if you wait for the specified time. So once you get used to using specific hydras and you don't want them to be intrusive anymore, I guess it makes sense to introduce the idle option so that you can just, you won't be bothered by the prompts anymore.
Speaking of Hydra, I noticed that in your config you also use Lispy mnemonic, and
Yep.
I hadn't actually come across that before. So I was just looking at the documentation now, and it looks really interesting. Thanks for including
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Actually, I guess I can out myself. I'm the author of that actually. I wrote. Well, I am still in the process of writing it. That's one of the reasons why I haven't released it on Melpa yet. But yeah, since I'm not a Vim user, I really have trouble basically learning Lispy. So that's why I'm writing Lispy mnemonic.
What's Lispy mnemonic? Sorry, I was writing down something.
That's okay. Are you familiar with Lispy?
Not in as many words, no.
Okay. Well, so basically, it's supposed to speed up Lisp editing,
Okay.
and it's kind of like par-edit, but it gives you quicker key bindings. So basically, when you're on a paren, as I am right now, you can see my cursor, for example, is on a parenthesis. Basically, you get to call just commands with just one keystroke because when you're in that position, you can assume to keep the buffer balanced, you're not going to be inserting texts outside of the expression that's inside, that's started by this paren, basically. I mean, it's really, yeah. You should look it up. There's lots and lots to say about it, but the thing is that the key bindings are fairly opinionated, in my opinion, and they're also, I guess, optimized for somebody who comes from Vim, and I don't, and that's basically why I started creating this package called Lispy Mnemonic that tries to use mnemonic key bindings for the different commands, and that also uses hydras extensively to make things more discoverable.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I get you to do a quick demo?
Sure. I mean, for instance, so I grouped all of the ACE commands. So Lispy uses ACE jump mode to jump and operate on different, yeah, basically parts of an expression. And I bound those to, in my case, it's bound to just A because that's Lispy ACE. And now you have to look in the mini buffer again. I have this Hydra, and basically that allows me to, for instance, if I press C now, I can jump to any character. For instance, let's say I want to jump to Y. I press Y, and then I can just jump there. And let's see what else. I can replace a string or whatever, like I did here. Yeah, so I've grouped all of them. Then I have what else do I have? I have a move Hydra. That's gonna basically allow me to move stuff up and down.
Oh, nice.
So, and this obviously, because it's Lispy, it operates with basically expressions, and it tries to keep your parentheses balanced and stuff. Let's see. Sasha, if you're looking at the documentation, then maybe you can tell me what other hydras I have. I mean, I'm really on the spot right now.
That's okay. Don't.
Let me see if I can. Oops. Yeah, I can check myself actually.
You have ace, debug, eval, format, goto, mark, move, outline, race, slurp, and X.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, so the eval hydra I use quite a bit. I've bound that to just E. And then again, E is to eval the current expression. I need to move my window. Sorry. Okay, I can see better now. Yeah, and I can. Wait, what does that do? Yeah, so if I call, for instance, comment, it'll insert the result of evaluating the current expression into the buffer as a comment. I mean, this is really, all of this is Lispy functionality. I can't take credit for for that. I did not implement that, but I'm just trying to make it more discoverable. And more accessible, I guess, to users who do not have a Vim background and who like mnemonics to learn packages and to remember commands.
Okay. So Lisp is really focused on Vim-like key bindings, or how should I understand that?
Yeah, Lispy itself has a lot of, for instance, the movement keys are like J, K, HL or whatever it is.
All right.
Yeah, for instance, I mean, something that really that I could not wrap my head around, Lispy, there's a command called Lispy left, no, Lispy right, and that's bound to L. So that,
yes,
I don't
obviously.
know, it messes with my head. So
it's obvious, yes. No, I get you. I understand. I think I would like Lispy. I don't think I need your thing.
That's okay.
No, it's but it's actually something that I am very fortunate that people are getting into, and then that there's other people except myself that care about discoverability and all these kind of UI principles, because I think it's such a shame that we have UI kind of guidelines and research from sometimes 30 years ago or so that figured out all this stuff, and we simply ignore it.
Yeah.
I have a book. I have a thick book. It's like it's this thick, and it's all DOS and Windows 3.11 style GUIs, and it's all the stuff that they figured out back then and wrote books about. And yeah, by will exactly. But by now we do it all over again. It's all broken again. It's all kind of, everything is looking super fancy, but you have no idea what you can do with it and how to even get into it. And I think discoverability is one of these principles that we should take very, very seriously. And I don't see that happening. So I'm very glad that you're kind of one of the forward-thinking people, I suppose.
Thank you.
So let me just.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry. You
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to double check if I understand the workflow correctly. You would use a keyboard shortcut to go into Lispy mnemonic mode, or does it just happen automatically when you're in, like, when you type on a parenthesis versus not typing on a parenthesis?
Um, Yeah, so basically you would have to enable Lispy mnemonic mode. I have that set up to I bind it to some sort of hook. I don't see it right now, but I usually enable it instead of Lispy, so it requires the Lispy package, and basically I reuse the key map, the Lispy mode key map, and I just basically overwrite the bindings that I like, and also Vanilla Lispy overwrites some of the default key bindings that are unrelated to Lisp editing functionality, and I have this configuration option where if you set this Lispy mnemonic restore bindings to T, it'll also restore the bindings that Vanilla Lispy overwrites. Which, yeah, because I think one of the things that was kind of annoying for me personally was that Lispy uses meta M for marking, and that's usually bound to back to indentation. And this is a command that I use frequently, and I actually noticed that I was using the command less even in other modes like org mode, because I was kind of trying to learn Lispy, and then I was like, okay, I can't use this command anymore because it's going to mark stuff. And so basically that's one of the motivations why I wanted to be able to also restore the original key bindings.
Mhm. Cool. Excellent.
Neat. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
No problem.
Hey, there you are.
I'd love
Okay.
to convince you to get it on Melpa sooner rather than later, but you can release it when you're ready. Just because I'm too
Well,
late to add something.
right. I feel you, but I don't know. I feel like it's not 100% stable,
That's
even
good.
for me personally, and I kind of hate when that happens, like when the API breaks of something that I'm used to using. So
Mhm. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So
We'll let it.
release it when you're done, or yesterday. Yeah. No, it's great to know that these things are happening. Um, yes. So, Sasha, do you have anything to talk about, or should I fall back on my list of interesting things?
Well, you were curious about how I was taking notes for these things, so I
Oh
can very
yeah,
briefly
please do.
describe it.
Please do.
I've been using org timer item. So if you call metax org timer start, then it'll start a timer, as you can see. And if you call metax org timer item, or just press meta return while you're in a list, it will add a new timestamped entry. So for example, I'm here, I might say, okay, this was talking about org timer and meeting notes, and I press meta enter and it adds another timestamp, and I can keep typing more notes. Now I have a little bit of
Whoa.
Emacs Lisp that will then take a YouTube URL and convert this into timestamp links. So if you, hang on a second, let me zoom in here. YouTube. Yeah, here we are. So as you can see here, what it does is it just gets the YouTube property if there already exists one, or it reads that from the user, and then it just does a quick search and replace for anything that looks like a timestamp in the region, putting in a YouTube link instead. So that's a very quick way to take notes during a meeting, especially one that's recorded, and have lovely timestamps. They look accurate, but really I have like a little bit of delay myself. So sometimes if you want, you can always just edit things, right? To more make the timestamps better.
Cool. Yes. I was actually wondering how you were doing that, because for one of the Hangouts you had your notes open all the time, and I was like, That's phenomenal. How do you do that?
Typing quickly, I guess, and yeah, I just find it easier to not have to go through the entire thing again if I just want to
Yeah.
refer to a small
Jeez,
part.
that would suck.
It's okay. It's nicer for a lot of people if they don't have time. They can just go through this and look at the
Oh,
interesting
absolutely.
links.
No, I mean, it would suck to have to go through it afterwards again. Just a waste of
Yeah.
time.
I used to actually have Emacs chats transcribed, but I always had a hard time
Oh.
listening to my part of the conversation. So now if I just take notes as I go along, and then I don't have to listen to me being a chipmunk despite the Blue Yeti.
I think nobody's ever satisfied with their own voice. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's something very normal.
Yeah.
Yes. So, um, I had an interesting discussion at work lately, and I think I only kind of it only came up because I started looking into Emacs. And so what we were talking about was the cognitive overhead of um, new IDEs and GUIs and stuff like that, and editors, obviously. And I noticed that, for example, there's this. So I guess you all know Sublime Text, I assume, at least briefly, anyway. And then there's this phenomenal command that's bound to Control D, which marks a thing, and if it's already marked, it will mark the next occurrence, and so on and so on. And what it also does, it places a cursor at each of the instances, so you can very quickly refactor whatever text you need to refactor. And I noticed that I use this so much even when search and replace would probably be quicker or a better way of doing things. And I started thinking about why that is. And I started thinking about um, kind of what other commands I can think of where I actually prefer a slower command, but maybe a more organic command, which I think this is. It's kind of it allows you to sort of stay, or for me, it allows me to stay in the mindset that I was before, and just kind of go like, I need one more. Let's do. It doesn't take me out of my mental model as much as, for example, pushing Control H and doing like, what do I need to replace? So yes, it's this, and I need to replace it with this. And I was wondering whether I can find other things that work this way, because I think it's a wonderful way of having something that has incredibly low cognitive overhead, but being incredibly powerful. Oh, and by the way, I don't know his name, but his handle is Magnars. He's the guy from What the Emacs D and Emacs Rocks. He wrote the multiple cursors ELIST module, by the way, that does exactly this. I haven't tried it out, but apparently it's good. So yeah, back to the question. Do you know of any other commands that kind of work this way, that give you this sort of more organic way of editing that then enable you to stay in your, maybe in the mental model for your program or something more?
So probably the most common example I hear of that, it's a really, really common one, is the debate uh, between using transpose commands versus doing backward kill word when you have a typo. That one comes up all the time, and I think there are, within even with people who are obsessed on efficiency inside Emacs, I think there are multiple schools of thought on this one. So the idea is, for example, you type a word, you've got two characters flipped, very, very common typo. Do you
Okay.
either navigate to them or stop when you actually transpose them and hit transpose characters, or do you backward kill the entire word and retype the entire thing?
Ha!
Uh,
I see.
so, and this one, I think it's a little bit less clear in terms of one of them clearly being efficient than the other. Personally, I think my approach to this particular one is kind of like your preference in that I don't like trying to micro optimize it, and I think it's actually easier to have one ready answer for any typo, kill the word, redo the entire thing. Because for the average
Yeah.
word, it's not going to take me that much effort to type 4 to 5 characters, especially if it's a phrase that I've already got decent muscle memory for in a language.
Yeah.
So at least for typing prose, I think it's probably much easier to retype an English word. Where it's a little less clear in my mind is if you're working in a very verbose coding language like Java or something crazy like that. You've got a 50 character long class name that you swap 2 characters, and then there's I think it's a little less clear which of those is more efficient, even if you've got both of them programmed into your hands. So I think I hear that one from I think probably 5 or 6 different forums over the years have kind of regurgitated that same debate, and I don't think there's never really a clear answer.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the, I guess, the similar shifts that I've been working on getting used to is kind of using, well, Ace iSearch makes it easy, right? Using Ace Jump to jump to single characters that you see on your screen. And Ace iSearch will help you combine it with Helm Swoop, so you can search for anything even if it's not on the screen. You just find, like, instead of breaking out of the habit of pressing up and down to get to some place, just using search to jump to place instead. That's been helpful. But on the flip side, it also competes with using kind of the syntactic navigation of Paredit or Smart Parents or Lispy, I guess. It's a kind of competing instinct.
So, what does Swoop do? Sorry to.
Oh, what Swoop does is it gives you a Helm interface for the matches in your buffer.
Okay.
And let
I
me
see.
just quickly demonstrate that here. So, for example, if I vaguely remember that we talked about something, what's an interesting thing we talked about recently? The C# thing. So
Yeah,
if I type
Omni
C#,
Sharp, yeah.
oh, actually, let's type something longer. Omni#, okay. Omni#. So what Ace search does is if the search is over a certain length, then in the bottom part here, in that Helm interface, you can see it lists all the matches in the file. So you can then press up and down to go through those matches very quickly.
Oh, cool.
This is actually also editable for some reason because Emacs. So if you wanted to change these things, you could press Control-C, Control-E, and it becomes an editable thing, and you could use multiple cursors mode on it. You can do crazy things, right? But anyway, so that is a thing. It exists.
I see.
It's called
That's-
Helm Swoop.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Sasha,
Yeah?
is there a way to make the swoop buffer permanent? Because I've been experiencing, I also use Helm Swoop, not in combination with Ace iSearch, but I've been having some difficulty with basically occur and Helm Swoop, because what I find really convenient is that Helm Swoop will act on the thing at point by default. So sometimes when I type out a command, I wanna see quickly like the other occurrences of that command in the same buffer. For instance, when I'm editing my my init file, and then I kind of want to so I use Helm Swoop because my cursor is already on the thing that I want to see, right? But then I would like for the swoop matches to stay visible while I'm typing out the thing that I'm currently working on. And I know that ordinarily you would use occur, but then I have to, if I want to use occur, I have to actually search for the thing at point, or at least pull it in with Control W. And so that's like a couple of keystrokes more than just invoking Helm Swoop. And then, I mean, we're now getting to the micro optimizations, but that's just something that's sort of been bugging me.
There's something about being able to resume Helm sessions. I'm not sure if that's entirely relevant. I've never actually used that, but
Okay.
it seems logical that you should either be like there might be something existing in Helm or something that you can write that will split off a separate buffer, so that you have that history if you wanted to go back to it.
Yeah. I mean, it might also be possible. I haven't tried it to just do basically other window to get out of the mini buffer where you enter the pattern normally, um, and that should actually, I think maybe that would do it. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah, so probably what I would do to investigate that would be to see if you can get the Helm soup, if the Helm soup buffer still sticks around.
mhm.
And if it doesn't, if you can force Helm to start a new buffer for your switch buffer.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, jumping in real quick. I'm gonna have to hop off. It's a couple hours past my bedtime, but thanks for
All
having me,
right.
and I'll see you guys next time.
It was nice having you around.
Yes,
See you soon.
absolutely. Well, Ian, maybe you can start another Emacs. Never mind.
Well, that makes sense. The nice thing about this is we can do as many different time zones as people want.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so what are you guys up to at the moment? I was distracted.
Oh, I was just wondering where, like how Helm Soup does its thing, so that just in case you
Okay.
want to, just a, yeah, it might be interesting to see if there's a way.
Yeah, I was actually gonna comment on the whole issue about micro optimizations and stuff.
Oh yeah, sure.
I feel like it's very much not black and white, at least for me. So I mean, you were talking about basically staying in the flow, not losing the flow while you're coding or writing or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Um, and I do find that what really matters the most is what keystrokes and what commands I actually have ingrained into my muscle memory. And the thing is, I mean, if I practice enough, I can make that happen basically for any command. And so I really, there are times when I'm just trying to get stuff done, and then I will automatically do basically what I know, what I basically I will just use my muscle memory to get stuff done, right? I won't try to micro optimize. But I feel like it's really over the years it's really helped a lot to set aside some time to practice new commands or even to bind them to keystrokes if I know that I'm using them a lot. And sort of slowly incorporating them into my workflow. And there are a couple of things that can help with that. For instance, there's command log mode. So if you're working on a large screen and you have some basically room to spare for just one buffer that can show you your commands, you will quickly notice which commands you're using a lot and that might not have a key binding defined for them. And there is also a tool that analyzes your usage of Emacs commands. I forget what it's called, but that will also give you a list of the most frequently used commands that don't have a key binding. So yeah, key freak, whatever.
Okay.
I think that's the one.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, I guess my point is that small investments matter, and if, for instance, I mean, for your specific use case, using multiple cursors, one command that can really speed up the process of editing adding the cursors that you want is MC mark all like this. I think that's the command. So assuming you mark one occurrence of a symbol with whatever meta at, and then you can just issue mark all like this, and then it'll automatically add cursors for all of the occurrences of that specific thing in your buffer. So if you already know that you want to edit all occurrences, then this is the fastest way. It's a lot faster than just doing mark next like this, mark next like this, mark next like this, right?
There's also a mark all like this, DWIM, do
Yeah.
what I mean, which
Mhm.
does the expand region type magic as you keep pressing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dan has joined us. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Hi, Dan.
We'll see whether he has a mic later. Yeah. So that's interesting. I think. I mean, I hope it was clear that the whole multiple cursors thing was just an example.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
It
Uh,
is difficult to change your habits, I guess, if you're used to
yeah.
doing something one way and you're trying to learn something else.
Mhm.
You mentioned using index cards, and I find that to be like a good physical reminder.
Mhm.
You could. I've also tried just binding the previous commands or keyboard shortcuts to like bell, so it
Nice.
dings
Yeah.
when you when you do the wrong thing.
That's
And
excellent.
there's actually a package somewhere that does this for movement commands. So if you're using arrow keys, it will very quickly train you out to using arrow keys and using other things
Excellent. Yeah.
instead. But yeah, so it's a constant challenge, right?
Mhm. So one thing that I also noticed was at work we use a lot of Eclipse because we do Java, and I kind of noticed that I get ripped out of my flow incredibly easily when one of these windows pops up to make like a new class or something like that. And I wondered whether you have noticed something about this as well. I talked to my coworkers about it, and they said that they often just use that dialogue to quickly enter the name and make it go away again because it's so broken basically. It's so complex that they would rather just make a new file and then edit the file to include all the stuff that they need. And I was wondering, I mean, this is obviously not directly related to Emacs because Emacs generally has all the stuff in the mini buffer, so it doesn't have this incredibly complex GUI nonsense. Um, so I was wondering whether you notice similar things where stuff has really uh, had a really bad case of ripping you out of your mental model.
Do you mean with Emacs in particular, or with other tools?
No, with other tools. Well, I mean, pick what you want. I'm just curious, kind of, what your experience were and how we maybe can use the information that we can get here to maybe build better tools. I don't know. I mean, it's just a thought.
Well, opinion is divided on Helm because of pretty much the same reason. The fact that it pops up a buffer and moves things around and whatnot is something that
Oh,
make
okay.
a lot of people prefer something else. And so it's people
Hmm.
find different packages to fit their preferences.
That's an interesting point. So Helm is this versatile thing that pops up all these buffers when I try to do things in SpaceMax, I think. So I think they use it for everything. They list all the stuff for like when you press MX
Yeah.
and they list all the buffers in there and all the completions, and even if you press the leader key, which is a concept from Vim, which is like it's space in SpaceMax, haha. Um, and when you press space and you wait like a second or something, it pops up like all of all the next level of the hierarchy of the bindings. So if you press space and then F, and then it will pop up the hierarchy under F and all this stuff until the command in the end. And I noticed that this kind of bothered me when I had multiple when I was using multiple windows because suddenly the wrong window was occupied. And I was like, I do not like you. Go away.
If you can live with having less vertical space to look at things, you can look at I do mode. I do also has I do vertical mode if you prefer having just like maybe 5 lines of things displayed. But that's kind of one of the philosophical differences between
Yeah.
Helm and I do that get people to choose one or the other.
Interesting. But yeah. Go on.
And you can also use basically combine the two freely. That's what I do. I mean, I've been an IDO user for a long time, and I'm just basically slowly starting to use Helm for selected tasks. So, for instance, I don't use it to switch buffers. I don't use it to find files. But for example, for projectile, like if I'm in a large project and I have a large number of files and I want to kind of find my way around, then I sometimes find it helpful to have more vertical space to see all of the matches that are available to me. And yeah, I think this is also documented on the Helm wiki. I have a very minimal setup. Helm, let me see. Yeah, and I also use it for showing the kill ring. I used to use browse kill ring, but then I went on this spree of like getting rid of packages. I tried to sort of reduce the number of external packages that I was using, and I was trying to find replacements for everything, and so I found one in Helm show kill ring. So I have that bound to a key, and yeah, so you can if you're starting with vanilla Emacs and I'm not familiar with Spacemacs, but if you're just adding packages selectively, you can very much pick and choose what you want to use of Helm and what you don't want to use. And actually, one thing about the leader key. I mean, again, I'm not familiar with Spacemacs, but what you described sounded pretty much exactly like Hydra. I mean, you can think of a Hydra as sort of like being this entry point, and you have all of these commands that are sort of below and that you can then call with just single keystrokes.
I actually noticed it midway through describing it, that it was kind of the same or very similar. So the leader thing is it's a sub package or I don't know, a sub package of evil, I think, because leader is such a Vim concept. I think they wanted an easier way to define these kind of hierarchy of commands to make the Vim experience more excellent. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Dan, have you gotten your mic to work, or you just listening?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, actually, yay!
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm on my iPad, and I usually have the mic muted, and I forgot how to unmute it.
Alright, that's fine, don't worry.
So, yeah, I'm from Silicon Valley. I've been looking at Emacs for, I don't know, a month maybe or so, off and on, trying to figure out my optimal workflow. And what I've come up with is export org mode to HTML.
Nice.
But then I think I want to use snippet to give me the HTML5 declaration that I want through the head, so I can have one set up for Yahoo Pure or Bootstrap, things like that.
Okay.
Would you consider setting that up as an org publishing project instead? Because then you could override the HTML that gets exported, depending on, I guess, a directory, for example.
Okay, so I didn't know about that. I knew it could export to HTML. I go, cool.
Yeah.
What is org publishing mode?
Okay, nice. Let me dig up the relevant bits in my config here. Good. I figure the fewer manual steps you have in your publishing, the better, right?
Right.
Okay. Oh, so my config here is not that. Let me see if this one's going to be more useful. Hang on a second. C code. Wait. Trying to remember where I put things. Chats, build site. Is this an example? Okay. My example is going to be a bit more complicated than what you would normally have. But if you look here, there's an org publish project A list, and you can find more information about this, of course, in the publishing section of your org mode manual. Anyway, it has an HTML preamble and an HTML postamble, and you can also specify things as the HTML head. So here in the HTML head, in my case, I'm putting in a variable just so I don't have a lot of text and so I can reuse it elsewhere. But it basically lets me specify, link, rel, etc., etc. So that's some stuff that I include as boilerplate that will change depending on the project that I have. If you look in the, let's go look at the org mode manual now. Under publishing, I guess, is probably where we have that. Second. Head. Org HTML head. Do you tend to change these across different projects, or do you just have one heading that you want to use across everything?
No, I want to change it based on the project.
Okay. Per file, you can do this in a file directive, I guess, using a file keyword like this. And if you want to do it by project, then you can look at the publishing section to look at how to define projects. And quite a few people who have sample configs online as well.
Okay, that's excellent. I didn't even know that part was in there, because there's so much to learn about org mode.
Yeah, there's tons. I mean, there are like a gazillion things you can do with it. You can say, oh, here, this is probably what you're interested in. Like this org, HTML, HTML5 fancy, and the doc type as well. And if you look at the variables for that, you can get more detail.
Cool. That looks like exactly what I need.
Perfect.
Sounds cool. So, have you guys? I assume you all use Git in some form or another. Did you have any complex setups for Git? Is there something that I should know except I think Margit or however it's called?
Lately, I've also been using Git Time Machine.
I was just about to mention that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, which is just an easy way to go back and forth between revisions, so you can go backward and forward in history.
I've been trying to set it up for the last 5 minutes, but
well, you can always take a look at your config if you're struggling.
This is more of a SpaceMax problem than an Emacs problem, so I'll spare you.
Okay.
Yeah, I use a whole smattering of.
Whoa.
I mean, of course I use Magit, and you're probably familiar with.
Your audio was a little choppy there, so if you wouldn't mind saying that again. Tim, sorry, I didn't get what you said.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I was saying that I'm using many different packages related to Git. I mean, I use Magit, obviously, for I also interacting with. Also use Git. Didn't mention many Fringe. No, Git Gutter Fringe Plus. I don't know. and which basically shows me indicates additions and deletions and changes in the fringe, and also provides some commands for jumping between different hunks and showing the diffs and staging. I think you can also commit, but I don't really use that. I just use it to review changes and to quickly jump between different hunks. I have a Hydra for that. That's really convenient. And yeah, let's see what else. Yeah, I have this setup. I use git whip. So this is actually a shell script. And basically what that does when you enable that, and it has Emacs integration with a small script, and what that does is every time you save a buffer, it's gonna create a work in progress commit. I originally started using that because I was doing a lot of natural language writing, and I always feel like I don't want to forget how I worded things, but then I still want to be able to experiment, and having these work in progress commits is a good way to basically, without having to think about it, to change around your sentences and then easily go back to what they were before. And so I've integrated that into Emacs even a bit better with another package that I called Git Whip Time Machine. So there's actually a time machine for the whip commits. So you can look at everything that you've done since the last real commit. So that's my setup. I mean, I really like the peace of mind that it gives me, because I never think about changing the buffer, because there's just no friction to going back to what I had a minute ago or 10 minutes ago. And it's just really, yeah.
Okay.
I never. I just do it.
I've been using undo tree for that same sense of security, but git whip looks like an even better way to do it across sessions.
Yeah.
So, can you post a link to that maybe? Because I have trouble finding it right now.
Sure. So it's
I got it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Whip.
I mean, if you wanna use it, sorry, if you wanna use it with the time machine integration, I wrote some documentation, and I actually have a fork of the Git Whip project, because I made some changes to the Emacs integration, and if you want to use the time machine, the Whip time machine, then you would have to use my fork of the Git Whip project.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, if there are any questions, I can answer them if you want to play around with it, but I tried to document how to set stuff up.
I'll certainly have a play around with it. Yes, that sounds lovely.
Someone recommended using Git Messenger before as well to kind of get a quick sense of what the commit message was at this particular line.
Oh, okay. Can you post a link to that?
Sure.
Or, well, what was the Git Messenger you said?
It shows you the commit message for the specific line.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's a bit like Blame, but differently.
Yeah.
There's also there's built-in functionality for this, I think, from VC. So I believe if you're in a file that's part of a repository, you can do Control X VG, and that calls VC annotate. And I'm not sure if that gives you the commit message, but it certainly gives you the hash. And it also, what I like about it is it colors the lines of the, so it pops up a new window and it colors the lines of the original buffer according to when they were last changed. So I think the oldest changes are, I don't know, blue or something, and the newer ones are orange and red and stuff. So,
Cool.
I mean, that's maybe not super useful, but it's, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes if you have a really old file, it's very interesting to see what has recently changed.
Yeah, and then I'm not too familiar with the VC commands, but I think there are commands from that annotate buffer to that allow you to jump to the commits to where you can read the message. I haven't used that myself,
Okay.
but I think there are commands for that too. So if you want to stick to built-in stuff, if you don't want to add yet another package, that's an alternative.
Okay, cool. So let's get, yeah, right. It's a lot of.
So much to
I'll
learn.
have to. Yeah, I'll have to read a lot of stuff. So much to learn, so little time. Oh
It's good
well.
though.
Yeah. No, I'm very glad that I can kind of invest this kind of effort into something because I know exactly that Emacs has the capabilities to support it, whereas other editors I'm never quite sure whether they will crumble under kind of the complexity or something. And here I know that it's just going to take forever to load, but afterwards it's going to be fine. Well, at work I have a really crummy PC. It takes like 10 seconds for Emacs to load in the best of times, so you know.
Yeah, I recently watched your uh, interview or whatever with John Weekly, Sasha, about
Yeah.
use package, and I've moved my configuration over to use package, and I'm down to
Mhm.
2.5 seconds, I think. So thanks a lot for doing that. That was very helpful.
Yeah, use package is great.
That's good to hear. I'm still loading all the things because I still like using the package system, but one of these days I will update my configs to use things properly.
So what are you doing, Sasha?
Well, one of the things that I'm doing wrong is that I basically use the regular package system to load all the packages. This is auto
Ah,
loads
okay.
instead of actually sitting down and thinking about what I actually use. I
Okay.
just want it to be all available. So,
I still do that though, Sasha. I still have the package initialize call at the beginning of my init file, and I use this module. I don't think that's on Melpa, but it's called
yes.
profile.emacs, and actually I thought it was really interesting that the package initialize call is actually not the bottleneck for these 2.5 seconds that I now have in terms of startup time. It's a bunch of other packages that I really need available
Okay.
right on load, and
Yeah.
they, for instance, Unicode support that takes the
Yeah.
longest to load, and I think package initialize is just zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.3 seconds. So
That's good to
um,
know.
Cool. So I had an interesting thing lately that I was trying to I was trying out a few modes. So I installed a Markdown mode, and every time I subsequently opened the Markdown file, it took like 1.5 seconds to load, and I was really confused because
Oh.
I figured like at least loading the file should be really quick, right? And
Oh, yeah, snippet
so
maybe?
no, it was I think it was fly check or something,
Um,
and it was trying to launch an external command, and it wasn't finding it, so it basically went, I don't know what to do, and never mind, I'll give up. And then it loaded the file without it, but it never gave me feedback for that, and I was like,
huh.
what's going on? So I checked the messages, and sure enough, could not find command help help. So I installed the command, and immediately, like, boom.
Well, it's good thing you need to check the messages buffer.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, I actually had to look up where the log is for Emacs, and I was like, of course, one of these buffers I never opened. All right. Cool.
Cool,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. Cool. So let me check whether I have anything else to talk about. But I think I have exhausted my the buffer for this week.
Well, I've got a lot of interesting things to explore here too. I've got to get used to
I'm
this
I'm
helm yeah
sure.
snippet thing.
My head is kind of swimming with all the stuff that we talked about. I'll have to, I don't know, reread your notes afterwards, Sasha. Hmm.
That's why I like spacing these about a month apart.
Yeah,
Well, different time zones can be like just several weeks apart, right? But
yeah,
you
exactly.
can once your brain reaches like a
Uh, yeah, totally.
Are you planning on doing more hangouts in for your European people?
I am, yeah. Well,
Okay.
that's the plan, yeah. Because, well, clearly at 3 a.m. it's just not working.
Yeah.
I'm curious whether this is going to actually interest any Europeans, because until now we had me. So, I mean, I love talking to you guys, but let's see whether we can find any other.
I'll
Well,
keep reaching out.
I'm in Europe too. I mean, it's
Oh,
now
okay, I
dark
see.
outside behind me. I don't know if you can see, but
Of course.
when we
Mm,
started, it was still light out. So
silly me. Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
I see. Sorry about that. I didn't mean.
that's okay. That's fine.
It's good. It's good. And now that there's a Google Plus page and other people can figure out this stuff,
That's true.
we can
No, no,
we
I'm not disappointed or anything. No, it's great. It's great. It's great.
I'm very excited
Cool.
about it. All right. So maybe we'll hear from you again in a month with another date or whenever your brain is
Absolutely,
ready
yeah.
for more Emacsing.
Yeah. So shall we wind down for tonight, or
Sure.
today, or tomorrow, or something? No. Okay. Cool. So
All
Oh, I
right.
have one more question for Sasha, and
Uh-huh.
maybe this will interest some people out there as well. When is your second episode of Development Tips coming up with John
Ah,
Weekly?
eventually when I reschedule with him, so I will
Okay.
work with him to nail down a new date. Sorry about the last minute schedule change, but things happen. So,
Just really looking forward to that.
he's awesome, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Although I should probably get you in one of these too. So if you want a brain dump in a more structured format, you clearly work on a lot of different things.
We'll talk about that offline, I guess.
Yeah. Cool, coolio. Okay, so
okay.
yeah. Uh, Philip, if you can stick around, like basically to wrap up the public portion, you can click on the
Mhm.
end broadcast button.
I will.
But I usually keep the window around open a little bit longer, so it's easy to copy the group chat.
All right. Sure. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Good. So thank you all for coming. Thanks, Dan, for showing up at the last minute. That was
Oh,
great.
you're welcome.
And Tim, thank you for answering all these questions. And thank you to Will, who already left, unfortunately.
Will
And
and
thank
also
you
Ian.
for.
Ian was
Yes,
also
very good. Yeah,
around
yeah.
for.
Excellent.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, Ian. And thanks, Ian. And thank you to Sasha for putting
Thank you.
this idea into the public space. That was excellent. So
All
I'm going to wrap up the broadcast now.
right.